What's up, Banana Bunch? It's time for another episode of the Jungle Gyms podcast. There's a lot of excitement happening in the jungle this week. Quite literally, you can probably hear it in my voice a little bit, because this Saturday, January 29th, I am going to be recording a live episode of the show from a bathtub full of Cincinnati-style chili here inside the WJJI studio in Jungle Gyms. Now, if you are into sports, you've been following the world of sports, and it's that time of year, our very own Cincinnati Bengals have made it to the playoffs for the first time in over 30 years. So I had to show love the best way that I knew how, which was to do a live segment with all of you here in the jungle while I am bathing in chili. You're welcome. Here's a few updates. It's going to be a free event, so stay tuned to our social media for official start times, as I'm literally running around like a crazy person with the creative team all week to make this happen, and I'm ironing out those details. But I'll say this, our tentative plan, and I feel like this might end up being the permanent plan, but of course, this is why you're going to follow us on social media to make sure. Our tentative plan is to do this event between noon and 2 p.m., again, on Saturday, January 29th. This is going to be so fun. It's so ridiculous. I've been laughing about it since it all spiraled out of control. You know, it's one of those times where you just wrote a funny tweet and everything else just sort of fell into place. But speaking of fun things, you know what else would be fun? Leaving me a short review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Look, I'm not going to give you all the whole spiel this time, as you can hear it at the top of every episode like you're hearing it right now. But of course, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Reviews and downloads, those are the things that help us succeed and stay as one of the world's most popular shows. And look, we've been peaking pretty high in the charts regularly, but you know me, I'm an achiever, and I want to see us land in the number one spot one of these days, and this is really an easy way for all of you to help. So, yeah, leave a review. And thanks so much to everyone who's already left reviews. You know what, I'll do you all solid. Since you've already left those reviews, I will go ahead and let you all have a free sample of my bathtub chili for your efforts. Please don't make that a reality for me or you. But before I dive in, don't forget, in every episode show notes, both on your favorite podcast platform as well as the YouTube releases, I put in helpful time codes so you can easily skip around on the show. If you're like, I don't know if I'm feeling this segment, what's next? You can jump around. I just want to remind you all of that. Okay, so today we're sitting down with Chris V, one of my favorite teammates here, to talk about the trials and tribulations of running a grocery store during a pandemic and how interesting some of these pivots have been, both for us as Jungle Gyms International Markets, as well as for the people providing the items to put on our shelves. And we talk about so many other things. I love giving you all a little of that kind of behind the scenes, well, really breaking the proverbial food chain action here by diving into the operational sides of this world. It's new to me. It's probably new to you too. And I guarantee that you're at the very least going to have the same reaction I did to Chris's cheese remark during the interview. After that, I'm playing a little teaser for you all. Now, you might remember a few months back and a few episodes back, we kicked off our very first Jungle Gyms beer series called The Road to the Jungle in collaboration with 50 West Brewing here in town. And if not, I would tell you, I highly recommend that you just dive into that episode, especially because Jungle sat in with us. Now, in a few weeks, we're going to have a whole longer episode based on this teaser you're hearing today, where you get to be a fly on the wall while we all sit down and decide on the next style and flavor of our upcoming beer in the series. But I'm hoping that this should whet your appetite for that release, which is coming up in February, so stay tuned, subscribe, all that stuff. Speaking of alcohol releases and fun events in the store, however, you like how I'm tying this all in? Yeah, me too. I'm pretty proud. I went to one of our wine walkabout events recently, and I stopped to chat briefly with some of our vendors and a customer, conveniently whose name was also Mark. Let's make that happen more often. I always like to mention, with some of these events I've never experienced before here at the Jungle, you have to know going in, I'm just sort of winging it. Not like obviously I'm prepared to talk on topic and I've done some research about what's going on and that kind of thing, but I never know what and I kind of hate to use this word, but the vibes of the situation are, right? Until I've experienced one. So yeah, I thought I might get way more interviews and way more time with the vendors, but it was exciting. I mean, the room's electric. You can kind of feel that excitement. And so while I know that you'll likely enjoy all of this, even though I'm just being hard on myself and doing that whole thing, I think you should also know that every time I do one of these on-location bits, it's just going to keep getting better and better as I get more acclimated to how we do events here in the jungle and all that fun stuff. And I'm cooking up a bunch of video content right now. It's been so much fun. Okay, don't let me do the whole imposter syndrome thing for too long. Here are a few short interview bits from the Wine Walkabout so you can get a taste as well. But don't swirl the podcast around a glass. Just listen to the interview. Are you all having fun? You can just shout yes at me. Yeah! That's the tone of the jungle. The Fairfield jungle, not to be confused with the stadium jungle. All right, Charlie, you're on the Jungle Gyms podcast. Welcome. All right, tell me who you're with, what you're doing here today.
We're doing a walkabout for Jungle Gyms, and I'm with Tremonti & Sons Wine Company, distributor.
Awesome. So what makes the wines that you've brought today special? Like, what's the exciting part for you about this?
It was really nice that Michael let me pick all the wines, and I picked my favorites. So it's real easy for me to talk about them, talk things over with the guest, and it makes their experience better, I think.
Absolutely. So what do you have? What's your favorite that you brought with you today? Is there one in particular, maybe two in particular?
I love them all, but I actually made the Cincinnati. So in September, around September 15th, my wife and I, another couple from Columbus, went out and made my fourth vintage of the Cincinnati. And we make about 168 cases, and it's always a really good time. Yeah.
That's so cool. Have you been making wine a long time, or is that just sort of came with the territory?
Just kind of came with the territory. Yeah, got the opportunity and really love it.
Just run right towards it. That's my move, too. So you mentioned before that Michael let you pick your own wine. Is that kind of an uncommon thing at some of these tasting events?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But I've been doing this a long time. I'm in it over 25 years now. So, yeah, most of my customers rely on me to just take care of it.
Sure. Yeah. You have any favorite things about Jungle Gyms?
Oh, I love this place. Always have. When my kids were young, we come down here all the time. And, we teach sailing camp out of Houston Woods. And it's a big thing for all the junior sailors, 11 to 15, to come here. It's kind of a yearly thing. After sailing camp, they all come to visit Jungle Gyms, and then they go to Kings Island.
Beautiful. I love that. That's it. Can't get more Cincinnati than that. You made a Cincinnati wine. You got the Jungle Gyms on there. I love it. Well, Charlie, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. All right. What was your name and who are you here with?
I am Megan. I'm with Vintage Wine Distributor. We've got some really awesome stuff today.
So what's so awesome on the lineup today?
So I've got a lot of France, which I love, specifically the Rhone Valley. So I've got a Rhone Red blend, so Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. I've got a full Syrah from the Rhone Valley. We also have a Rhone White, which is very hard to come by. 50% Claret, which is really interesting.
And what was that expression?
Claret.
What does that mean? Teach.
It is a grape. But also some Viognier and a little bit of Grenache Blanc. So it's going to be more floral, a little bit heavier bodied, a little bit more of that like beautiful like nectarine, stone fruit.
Oh, cool. I like that it just sounds like you're talking in code the entire time. Like, yeah, it's got a little of this and, All right. I was going to do the Red Rhone, yeah.
Okay, so this is beautiful. It's a Grenache Syrah mostly, a little bit of Mourvedre.
Okay.
So you get beautiful red fruits up front. You get a touch of that earthiness. Just a really great expression. So Domaine Solitude, they were actually planted back in the 1500s.
Oh, wow.
Also, the only pope that was excommunicated is part of the Lancôme family.
Oh.
So a little spicy facts there.
Yeah, I love it. I was going to say, it's also a miniature hitter's history lesson today.
Right. Well, that's wine.
Yeah, right.
That literally is wine. Like, so many of our regions have gone back and forth over, like, country lines, and, the Romans were, like, the first people that had wine, allegedly. The history is wine. Wine is history and geography. It's amazing.
That's so cool. Any other particular highlights you'd like me to shout out on the show while we're here?
We just have some really great wines here at Jungle Gyms. All of our wines are amazing.
Cool. Well, Megan, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully you'll come on the show one day.
Yes, would love to. Thank you so much.
And sorry to swing the microphone into your hand. All right, Mark, a fellow Mark, welcome to the Wine Walkabout. Are you having fun so far?
I am having a great time. This is an awesome experience. Being able to taste all the different type of wines that are available to us today, this is great.
That's so cool. Is this your first one doing this, or have you been here before?
No, this is the first time I've done the whole wine tasting experience, and it's a great experience. You got wines from Italy, you got wines from France, U.S., Napa. Great experience.
I'm really glad to hear that. That's awesome. Is this your first time in Jungle Gyms at all, or are you a regular here?
No, we're a regular. We've been out here probably for 25, 30 years, so we know Jungle Gyms from our fruit stand to where it is today. So it's a great experience.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, I love that. We were joking before that. Let me back up. Do you have any favorites that you've tried today so far?
I really like the Bordeaux and from Table 3, Megan. Megan had a great Bordeaux. Awesome experience. And the squirrel. Yes, my wife reminded me of the squirrel. So it is. Those are probably our two favorite wines that we've had tonight.
Cool. Yeah, but I love to tell the audience that I'm kind of the idiot exploring all this stuff for the first time. As I joked with you off air too.
Did, yes.
I love a little honesty and authenticity. I hope that they appreciate it too. But I'm just going through trying to figure out what it is I like. So
yeah. So what do you like, Mark?
That's a great question. So far, I think one of my favorites was the red Rhone that Megan had. Actually,
the Goats to Rome one, the red. Yes, very good.
Yeah, I love the flavor on that. It had like a good bit of like that red berry forward nature, a little oaky. I'm trying to learn all the terminology so I sound really cool in front of other wine people.
There you go. It's the whole wine experience goes from you start off at sweets, you go to the mediums, and then you go to the full bodies. Yeah, and that's what you're experiencing today are the full body wines, right? They're really good tasting wines, not the what we used to call, what was it back in the day? Strawberry Hill.
Oh,
yeah,
gosh,
we don't want any of those, right? So this is the $2 bottles to the $40 bottles. This is the good stuff.
Good.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Besides your favorite wine, what has been your best experience of being here tonight?
This is going to sound so corny and trite, but I really just like talking to people. I think that's why I'm in the job I'm in. So having moments with people like you has been great. Like it's kind of fun because we're all here to have like a good time together. So there's something, and I feel like, for the last 2 years in particular, we really haven't gotten that opportunity too frequently. So, as trite as it might sound, that's my answer. I'm here for the people, Mark.
Right. There you go, Mark. Mark and Mark talking to each other is a great experience. You can't beat it, people on the podcast team, but it's getting out, knowing each other, having some fun, tasting some wine, having a really good time. And Mark, I hope you appreciate it as well.
Thanks so much, Mark. I'm going to have to do more Mark-related interviews in the future. Hey, everyone. Thanks for your time. Again, shout out to other Mark. Always love meeting another one of my people. All right, moving on. Chris and I here bonded over a mutual love of 90s comedy with a little bit of a focus on Seinfeld, amongst other great things. And I just really happen to love that he's won an award repeatedly called the Golden Penguin. And he's gotten that award for his work here at Jungle Gyms. Now, I'll do you all solid, and I'm going to save you all the same disappointment I experienced when I found out that the award is just a plate with his name and the award's name on it rather than an actual golden penguin. But maybe we can reach out to the National Frozen and Refrigerated Foods Association to get them to change that in the future. But in the meantime, learn about some of the interesting struggles here in our business world from Chris V.
Hey, buddy.
We're here. We're trying this.
I'm glad we are.
Me too.
It's been a while. There's been a lot going on.
Oh, too much going on. Should we tell the audience our secret?
Sure.
Yeah, well, so this is the second time we're trying this because you and I both did that thing. I think this is fun. Like, I feel like, you're one of the people here that I've gotten to know the best in just a personal level. And so I was doing that thing where I was like, were we too personable? Were we too this? Did we not do enough of that? And what's funny now is knowing where the show is compared to where it was when we recorded it. Now, I was joking with you about this off air where I was like, we probably could have released that one. And it was fine and interesting, and I was just being self-conscious. So
no, you are the pro here at this. I was the one that was just talking, and I just kept getting sidetracked.
We're just going to beat ourselves up over it. Yeah.
Well, it still was good content, but, good enough to know that you are growing, by the way. Congratulations to you, my friend.
Thank you. I
looked at the ratings. I think it was this morning.
Yeah.
And you were number 55 out of all food podcasts in America. That is a wonderful statistic.
It's insane.
But what's even more insane is you are number one in the country of Jordan. The Jordanians love Mark.
Hey, everyone in Jordan that's listening right now. Thank you. I genuinely appreciate it. I kept thinking, I was like, do I have any family or anyone I know over there? And I don't think I do.
We have 2 girls that work here that are from Jordan.
Really?
Yes. One works upstairs. But they were both on the front end. One still is.
Yeah.
And they go back. Their family is there.
So maybe there's a little word of mouth action. That's what I'm always just
Could be.
I'm always so curious about that. And there's not, how do you really trace where anybody, it's like, how did you find out about us? We're an international market. So of course there's that angle to it. So I tend to just write it off there. I'm like, all right. But I'm always a little curious about that.
Yeah, me too. I think it's real interesting. All walks of life in this place. I mean,
35 languages, I think somebody told me the other day.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah, especially because I speak 1.5, so
yeah.
I'm learning to communicate.
Well, that's good. Me too. We'll see how we do today.
Well, Chris, tell the people, what's your role and what do you do here?
A lot of hats, my friend.
Yeah, and you look great in them.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Cover my bald head. I've been filling a lot of just kind of voids with the company ever since I've been working here. But my main roles currently are senior buyer and category manager is kind of the broadest 2 terms that I do.
Yep.
But I jump into a lot of areas where, if we have some crazy ideas where we want to expand something or create a new trend or catch traction on any sort of different category that we create. Like right now, a big decision that we look at is things like right now we have stores within stores. And that's like we have 5 different areas within the store where we have spices, for example.
Yeah.
Like the organic ones are natural foods. And then we got like the Indian spices in India and then so forth and so on. The McCormick and American Grocery.
Right.
So we look at things like, would it be more fun? Would the customers like it more if we have like one big wall of spices? Or is it fun to find them in each little store within the store? So we look at, I know, it's weird. We look at these things like we could do this with potato chips. We have, how many? We have this whole huge run over here.
I have like an entire rack.
Yeah, you do. You got a lot over here. You could run a mini mart.
Yeah, exactly. Once we get time, I've got a bunch of videos I want to do with them. So
yeah, I mean, crazy chips. So would it be more of a splash to be like, oh my God, chip world?
Right.
Versus, international chips or gluten-free chips.
Sure.
GMO-free. So we look at those things, and as things catch, we call them, they become mainstream. So they started out real small, kind of like a niche product, and all of a sudden they don't belong in like the natural foods department anymore because they caught legs and they became, lack of a better term, more Americanized or more just mainstream.
Sure.
So moving items, that is one way that we look at things.
That's
to just
so interesting.
Create more awareness, more sales, getting it in front of the customers more.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of weird stuff like that. Just running reports on what does well where, how, price point, just constantly running a lot of stats and numbers on stuff like that.
Super cool to me. And it's something I didn't recognize was something that you had your hands in. It doesn't surprise me, of course, because like you said, I've seen you wear so many hats, like running the store and everything, where it's just
yes, sir.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's just another thing. Like I kind of have been the guinea pig for this project, and there's a few that are really on board with this idea, and other people are kind of like, it takes away the magic of Jungle Gyms because people shop here for an extended amount of time,
right?
And they kind of like the idea of exploring, which is cool, and that works to our advantage,
right?
But I look at it just, on a monetary standpoint, could we make a bigger splash? Like we have those things already here. Look at the honey table,
right?
Nobody's got a honey table like we do. Our cheese department is like a great example of that.
Yeah,
cheese, it's everywhere.
And it's like, and it also covers the international gap too, where it's like, here's some cheese from this location. It kind of seems to do a little bit of everything.
Completely.
Yeah.
So I look at that as, I think it's like a left brain, right brain thing. Like I kind of would like to have things sectionalized more just personally as a shopper.
Yeah.
What I care about personally doesn't matter for what the masses want because we're trying to please our customers.
Right.
But, it's just it's fun to play with some of those things. So we don't do a lot of cross merchandising here, meaning, keeping this product in one department and also putting it in another. That's the solution-based shopping that most people do, and that's what you'll see at Kroger. Like during Super Bowl, you'll see an end cap, and it has all your goodies, like the chips, the dip, the 2 liters of Coke, and
Exactly.
have yourself a party.
But then you can also technically find it in their respective areas. That's what you mean by cross merchandising, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Well, that's also
I still don't know anything.
No. I mean, we reserve here end caps generally for our deals.
Yeah.
And
Which I think is smart, by the way, as a customer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're not going down the aisle, you're definitely going to pass the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So make it available. But we also play the volume game here. We have so many shoppers a week. I think it's 100,000, something like that. But so we have a lot of turns. We want to give customers a great deal, and we also want to, let them explore as well. So I'm constantly trying to figure out what's that middle ground.
Yeah.
And I notice I might be jaded on the big display part. That's kind of my preference, where I'm leaning.
Right.
Because the first real one of those I created here was the craft ice cream section.
Yeah.
And now I have 10 doors of crazy pints of ice cream. And, the percentage growth on that alone was, upper triple digits on what
Amazing.
I did just by displaying it and making it a thing. But we still have work to do with it. We have pints of ice cream that are in our international department that really don't belong there. It doesn't make sense. We have Americanized gelato that is in the Italian section and international.
Gotcha.
So that's what I do a lot, is curate what should be where. And
Cool, though.
yes, so it's a lot of moving pieces. It's kind of taking a puzzle and turning it a bunch of ways and seeing what works.
This is something that, it's like once I hear you say it, I'm like, oh, yeah, of course that's a thing. But I have to assume that I and people listening never thought about that. You know what I mean? That there's someone is actively going out well, what's going to appeal more to us,
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's, the brains behind it. If something doesn't work, if something doesn't sell as well as we think it should, then you got to try something else.
Yeah.
That's the whole name of the game. If it's not working, you got to do something. And while it might be working, are we missing opportunities? So
Sure.
that's where I also jump in with a lot of this stuff. Can I do more? Yeah, it's doing well, but what if we gave it this placement, and what would it do then? So there's a lot of stuff to look at throughout the entire store.
It's crazy. I'm just sitting here kind of with my mouth dropped, because I'm just oh, yeah, of course, these are all kinds of things. And it's something, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's one of my favorite things, whether I knew how to articulate it or not, about Jungle. And my experience here, just as an employee in the last few months, is that it does feel like, and a lot of the other big name retailers, if something doesn't work, it's just gone, right? You'll find that I'm an explorer at every shop I go to. So I'm that type of person who finds that one weird thing I like, and it usually disappears. But it rarely disappears at Jungle Gyms, which I think is interesting. And it's probably because you and people like you in the store are trying to go, hey, why is this not working, rather than just, oh, it's not, get rid of it,
Absolutely. And the other thing is, a lot of times we might be forced to do it because this place is constantly expanding or under construction, and well, we're going to move this over here. And, so we got to cough up space here, or, always make some changes. But, I've been working here for a while, so I don't have the shopper instinct that you do, say at Kroger or whatever. Right. I go to competition check and whatever, but I do know what you mean with, you might see something there, but then it's kind of gone.
Yeah.
And the way they work their aisles is just so different from us. And I'm like, why are the tortillas in grocery at Kroger on dry stock shelves? And here they're in our Hispanic section in a refrigerated case,
right
next to the cojita and the crema and all the stuff that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just look at that and I'm like, it's backwards. What's going on here? And why can't I find it?
Yeah. No, I think, you know what I think it is, and this is going to sound so corny, but we were talking about this while we were walking before. But I think this is we work for an independent business versus a huge corporation thing, where I tend to find it seems like there's a lot more camaraderie here. and kind of that family aspect. The example I'll just use the example I gave you, which is that I shopped at another store this weekend because it's very, I live far away from here.
Sure.
I was just grabbing a couple things, and in my time there, a lot of the shelves were like barren and disheveled, and it just looked like shit, realistically. I can say that since I didn't say who this popular grocery chain was. But it looked awful, and it was a bad experience, and nobody really seemed to care. Like, the employees kind of just looked like they were so locked into whatever boring task they were in that, like, presentation was lost. And so what I found so refreshing here is that when you walk around the store, and, of course, there's exceptions to the rule, but I would say the majority of the time our shelves look nice, and it looks like somebody cared enough to walk by and adjust something, because like customers are not going to be like, you take something down, you put it back. You're probably not putting it back with care. And that's not a knock on them. They're doing their own thing. But like, I feel like for us from like an employee standpoint, we do a really good job of like a lot of those things that have gotten lost to time in the big box retail space, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And, there's a couple points to what you just said that I can make. And one, with the store that you did go to and the shelves being barren and, just looking like shit, as you said. This is also a time right now where you're going to see when the pandemic hit and you saw how bad our shelves got hit and people were kind of hoarding almost,
right?
Because the fear of the unknown, we're starting to see that again.
Yeah,
and it's coming around because of the supply chain.
Sure.
I mean, I was looking at the news this morning, and there's hashtags for it and all that sort of stuff, but the shelves it's really bad. I was talking to my wife yesterday. She ran up to Kroger because she had to get something. She goes, I'm not kidding, Chris, they're out of strawberries, watermelon, and raspberries. These are a staple at our house.
Yeah.
Because my daughter had to stay home yesterday. She ran up, but
good choices,
she goes,
though.
Nothing. And I said, what do you think's going on out there? Like, this is, while we don't run out of it, luckily we have been able to source product. That is our obviously main job as senior buyers, which has become a job within a job just to get stuff.
Right.
But prices are higher, and getting the products harder. So while their shelves may look terrible, we do take a lot of pride in not showing our weakness if we do have it as, in the sense that product is hard to get or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
But, I walk the store with Jungle a lot, and he leads by action where I would do the same, and I think every owner would. But to see him bend down and pick up trash is a big deal.
It's crazy.
It's those little things that get expanded into when we were walking and I adjusted that thing on the end cap or whatever it was, just to put it back in place.
Well, I always see you doing that whenever we're walking through the store.
It's just second nature, and I think it is for a lot of people at this point. And what we have. Like when I run the store, one thing that I always do is if I'm not too busy, I'll run around with the shopping cart and I just find stuff that's out of place, our mispicks.
Yeah. And
you get them off the shelf and we go get them organized in the correct departments to put them back where they need to go. Otherwise, it's like having a messy desk. It's like anything else. You got to have a little pride with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, again, I'm not that new anymore. I've been here a few months now, but like, it is something I'm really starting to notice, because even in an area where something might be out of stock here, it's like the surrounding area is still well kept enough that it's like, okay, well, maybe we're struggling with supply chain issues too. But like, again, that pride's there where we're like, I mean, again, it looked like the image I have in my head as I was walking down a dry goods aisle. I'm trying to be so not specific so I don't sound like a jerk, but it was like, ramen, rice, all that stuff. And it seriously looked like somebody had just like tackled this aisle. So there were just like boxes of stuff everywhere. And it was just like, it was one of those things that I almost, having now watched you do it so much and see Jungle pick stuff up, and not just you guys, but like everyone go out and like adjust stuff as they see it out of place. I almost got involved there, and I was just like, what am I doing?
Oh, don't help them.
Yeah, no, not at all. I was just like, oh, it's awful. And
so hell with those guys.
Now instead, I'm just going to tell the whole audience. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, I also... here the people that are working in the department are working directly for the buyer ultimately.
Yeah.
So they know and are communicating what we can and cannot get, essentially. Sure. So if we know that we cannot get something, we're going to stretch out in double face or triple face an item so our shelves do not look terrible.
When you say things like double face, triple face, does that mean just like put more?
So if you are looking for Vlasic pickles, whatever, I'm just throwing that one out there. Classic, spears. If you have just one...
Come on, pickle sponsorship.
Yes. You're right. I don't know why I always pick pickles when I'm talking.
I'm into that. They're in jars. It's got like a good tactile thing going pickles. On. Yeah, they're a good product. I'm into it.
So if, Vlasic has, I'm just throwing this out there, like 10 different varieties, whether it's bread and butter, spicy hot, all that sort of stuff. You're going to put 2 to 3 facings of your best seller generally. Okay. And what that means is a pack out. So if they come 12 in a case, instead of having one row that goes 12 deep, you can essentially have, 24 or 36 on that shelf, but 3 facings of that best-selling brand. Cool. That's what that means.
Awesome. Thank you.
So you expand out on your best sellers to make it look better, but you are communicating with the buyer. The buyer should be communicating with the department that we aren't able to get this stuff. There's allocation on this because, everybody's shorthanded right now, and then there's shortage on packaging. Glass is short right now. So that's another reason I guess I picked pickles.
Yeah. Exactly.
So like canning jars, just glass in general, baby food that comes in glass. It's just so it's really weird to see. I don't know how it's affecting the beer bottle industry. I really don't. But
I'm curious about that too.
In the grocery world, glass is very short right now. So on the packaging, 2 main Cincinnati-based companies that I deal with here are out of cardboard trays. And that is just unheard of. Like, they cannot get the cardboard to pack their item.
That's crazy.
So we're waiting. We're just hoping to find out. So that's just another call that I got to make and say, these are 2 great selling items for me. What are we going to do?
Right.
They're problem solving. So it's just kind of a work in motion all the time. And I don't know, but in the corporate world, the orders are brought in from the top, the corporate. And the people at the store level, I think, they know it's coming, and they know maybe when it's coming, but the communication might have a little bit of a barrier where they know they can't stretch out or triple, double face things to make their shelves look better because they're supposed to be waiting on their goods that are coming.
Else. Okay.
So maybe they don't.
That's a good explanation too.
Well,
look at you.
Well, that's the thing. So if they're playing,
it's a diplomatic take on this.
Diplomatic take. So if they're playing a man-to-man defense, they don't switch to a zone if they have to, we do. They just kind of let the offense beat the hell out of them, I guess.
Sure.
That's my take on it, at least.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, so you mentioned the maybe potential disconnect in some of those aspects, and you being a buyer. Well, let me back up even a step further. I think I know exactly what you mean by being a buyer, but maybe I should let you explain that so that I can.
Yeah, sure. Well, being a buyer here and being a buyer somewhere else, I think, is 2 completely different job titles.
Okay.
Being a buyer here is, I think everybody would agree with this, especially all my, coworkers, buyers, is that we are in charge of everything from, I always say, B to Z, because we do everything but use our own money to buy the product. Jungle buys the product. But we are in charge of our numbers. We are in charge of our products, our pricing, our purchases. There's 2 ways to make money here, and it's on the sale price, but it's also the buy. That's where you make the real money.
Okay.
So the buying is negotiating. It's not just ordering. Anybody can take an ordering gun and click a tag and say, yeah, I need a case of this.
Right.
That happens too. That's not really being a buyer. That's just ordering. And that happens, on a daily basis around here. But being a buyer is, negotiating, finding out, staying ahead of the curves and understanding what might happen. It's kind of like its own little mini stock market in a way.
It almost feels like you could be kind of like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like you have a little bit of hey, listen, if you give it to me at this price, I'm going to give you this real estate.
There's
the store,
all
for
sorts
example,
of games and toys you can play.
That's
absolutely.
So cool.
There's certain things, different people do different things. And it's I'll give you, a front page spot on our ad. If you give it to me for this price, I think I'm going to move this many, but I need to make this much.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways to work the deal.
Cool.
there's other things that the one thing that we do have in our favor as buyers here is if a distribution company gets hung on a lot of product that might have slipped by one of their warehouse workers or whatever that is short dated, and they go, oh my God, we only have 3 weeks to sell this stuff.
Yeah.
We have a great opportunity to go, we name our price. Like, this is what I need it for because that's how quick it's going to turn. If I did the math right, I'm going to sell this many units, throw over this many days to get rid of it and still make a really good profit or whatever to help you out. So those are the fun buys. That's the fun one.
And that's some of the stuff I'm sure I've seen some of it. Like, and they usually keep some of it like on closeout near the registers, right?
Well,
or would that maybe be
it's just like
I know I'm speaking a little bit from a place of ignorance, but
no, you're not at all. And I mean, you don't know unless you don't ask. I don't think that many people know. It's just my world.
Yeah.
So like we got a load of pancetta pieces. Do you remember that one?
I do. That was the item I was thinking.
Yeah, pancetta. I mean,
I cleaned house on that, and I made so much delicious stuff with it.
Oh my God!
And it was dirt cheap. And it was that moment
2 for $1.
Yeah,
and it was like an 8-ounce package.
It got even cheaper than that by the time it was like in the last week.
4
or
for
two.
$1, blow it out or
it's
something.
Insane. I was just like, yeah,
but that's
I was
one
like
of those
donating it to friends. I'm
no,
like,
it's
make
great.
something delicious.
So yeah, those are the fun deals. But there's all sorts of different ways you can play it. Everybody kind of has their own different style. But the bottom line is you got to know what you're doing, how long it's going to take to sell it, what your average sale is on that item, per week, what its shelf value is kind of worth, all these sort of things. And you just make a decision. That's the main part of the buying. But the other part, to answer your question of being a buyer here, is
I love it, by the way. You answered it great already. Continue.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, just what I mean to follow up with here, that's the buying part of it. But then it's also controlling your numbers, your labor, your shrink, meaning not losing product to whether it's out of date or, theft happens. That's just kind of a fixed number that we throw in.
Right.
Curating your labor, knowing your labor numbers, just maximizing your bottom line. And that's the wonderful thing about this place and being a buyer is the autonomy. You get to make your own decisions. And it's kind of like one rule, make money. And just, but the markets are so difficult right now. And I'm in a fluctuating market, being with milk prices and eggs. Yeah. They're a commodity. So the price jumps and changes every day. And there's ways to look at that, read about it, talk about it, forecast it, all that sort of stuff. But the bottom line is milk's so short dated that you can't really do anything with making smart buys because you're only going to get like 10 to maybe 14 days on it by the time you buy it. So you're just kind of stuck with that one.
Sure.
So that's kind of the name of the game.
That's super cool. Do you also source new stuff?
Absolutely. That's also the other fun part. So you got to know your trends, where it's going. And I'm telling you right now, the biggest thing that I am personally seeing in my world is, which is just a weird thing. And I saw it break about 3 years ago on a pretty good scale, but now I think it's coming full force, and it's meat and dairy alternatives. People are getting away from actual grains and actual meat. And people are finding ways to make things taste pretty good that are meat alternatives. And it's a little scary in my, why is that happening?
Right.
I think there's a lot of buyers throughout the world. Like China has 80% of our grain right now. The world's grain, I should say. What all of that means, I'm not sure yet. But the trends that I'm seeing obviously affect the decisions I'm going to make to source new product.
Yeah.
And that is usually a fun game. And
it sounds like it would be probably the most fun part of the job.
The reason that, it is. But what separates us from national chains like Kroger or whatever is that everybody is essentially going to get the new product that is a national brand.
Right.
You're going to see it all over everybody's shelves.
Right.
But we have a unique opportunity here where we love the little guy that comes in, like Sam. When you talk to Sam with Sinsoy, a great product,
amazing product, and great people too.
And great people. He's doing a great thing. We know his wife Dana, and she does a great job. She's been working here as a beer vendor for a while, and
awesome.
So that product came here. We got it gave it some deals, gave it some end caps, some promotional pricing, and he's growing. And that is going to just add to where he might be able to go in the future, whether it's, retailers close by or maybe catch a chain, a big chain, a small chain. I don't know. But I like to get those products first. That's the fun one. So, there's been quite a few of those that we've all grabbed onto and really helped build.
Any favorites that you've found?
I do like, you've talked to her, Elizabeth Wilcox.
Oh,
Creamalicious ice cream.
Oh my gosh. Liz, please, you got to come visit us one of these days. I know her schedule's nuts though.
Yeah, she has so much going on.
Creamalicious.
Yeah, Creamalicious is great.
That was the moment I knew that you and I would be friends.
Yes, sir.
I think so. You're like, you got to meet Liz and you got to try this ice cream.
It's really good. We were the first to carry it, but I think she is blowing up right now, and she is getting into serious stuff. She has celebrity backers, endorsers, and
amazing.
Yeah, I think she's getting into maybe Walmarts and Targets. Maybe
that's cool. Well,
I don't know.
Congratulations to her.
Yeah, congratulations to her. She's such a cool lady. She texted me the other day, like, Chris, we have to talk. And now she's launching coffee creamers with the same flavors of her ice cream. I'm like, genius.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. Oh, I want that caramel pound cake in my coffee.
Yes, sir. So there's all sorts of cool opportunities like that. And it's fun to see them. It's fun to see how people come up with this stuff and, just the funky flavor profiles that we get here.
Oh, yeah.
Peanut butter and jelly soda, buffalo wing flavored soda. What? All right. But that's what makes us unique.
And it's always funny to see people walking out of the store. I've seen a lot of people buy the buffalo wing soda. I'm just like,
this can't be good.
Yeah, I can't. There's no part of me. I'm like, because I bet it's sweet, but I don't
tangy.
know. Yeah. Peanut butter and jelly soda. Okay, that's at least in the ballpark of
palatable.
Right. It sounds like a sugar flavor. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Ugh. But I always have fun in the soda department. I feel like I need to do a whole soda episode at some point. I've been kind of kicking it around.
Yeah, that is one thing that I dabbled in for about 3 to 4 years here. Yeah. And that was fun to get a lot of those. I brought a lot of those in.
Oh, cool.
So just interesting stuff. And, there's some really favorite brands out there. And it's cool to see our customers grab and gravitate towards them, like Cheerwine.
Oh my! Don't even get me started. Yes.
Oh, that's a big
As
one.
a popular road tripper myself, I always enjoyed taking trips down south. As soon as you hit the Cheerwine line,
it's big in the South with barbecue.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people know it, and you're not going to really find that anywhere else.
No, it's really hard. I had a friend, he was down in, I think, Asheville, North Carolina, right when I first started.
Yes.
And he was just like, he'd come back, and it was like a week after the trip. He's like, I'm down to my last 2. And I was just like, well, you can always pick up some of that Cheerwine shrapnel here.
Yes.
And he's like, oh,
bottles
really?
and cans.
And cans. I know, exactly. I didn't even, and this sounds so stupid, but I'd never seen it in cans until here. I see it in the glass bottles and the plastic bottles at gas stations when I drive, but yeah, that's like one of my favorite things ever. And so that's a thing. And you know what else we carry a lot of here? This is my East Coast kid coming out of me, and I really get excited about this, but it's birch beer.
Yeah, birch beer.
And that's like, nobody really knows about it. And I always try to tell them, like, it's like root beer, but a little more root flavored.
Yeah, well put.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little more earthy, woody.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Or something.
You got to like put the drink in the wood chipper, really get the full
it's
flavor
good.
of it. But that's too funny. I was going to ask you, outside of I guess the COVID stuff matters too, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you run into on not a daily basis, but on a regular basis?
Pre-COVID or just still going on?
I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe both?
Right now, it's the only answer I'm really going to have is sourcing.
Yeah.
How am I going to get it? And because I asked the question, how am I going to get it?
Right.
There's little to absolute zero negotiation going on.
Right.
You're just lucky you're getting it.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes a little bit of the fun out of it. But
sure,
there are items that don't have any trouble getting, that there's still some competition going on, and I can have my fun there. But
can I ask what one of those items might be without it being problematic?
The one, an item that I'm not having trouble getting.
Yeah, I'm so curious because
cheese. Right now it's cheese. Yeah,
sweet.
It's
great news for all of us out there.
Yes, that is great news. But what is weird right now is I'm dealing with an issue that there is definitely no shortage in cheese, but there is a shortage in the film that the cheese bars are wrapped in on certain areas.
That makes sense though.
Which is just goofy.
It is sort of weird that like so much of the problem lately seems to be packaging.
Yeah, a lot of packaging issues.
It's really kind of, I mean, it's not funny, but I laugh at everything. So
yeah,
it is a little bit funny. Of all the things, you think all the sourcing of the other stuff would be the bigger issue, but
you think of it as just one item that you, as a customer, are trying to buy. Like, there must be a cheese shortage because they don't have cheese. No, you got to think about all the things that go into that. There's a shortage of drivers to get that cheese.
Right.
Here. There's a shortage of maybe ink that goes on that film that they can't get.
Right.
There is, there could be just any sort of shortage or issue along the way. There's a lot of variables that could lead up to all of those things, and we're really seeing it hit pretty hard right now.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when we were walking, have you noticed this? I'm not going to name the company.
Yes, but this popular water brand
used to have very thick plastic.
The label's way different too, actually.
And now customers, that's thin, bad plastic.
Yeah, and there's that part of me that's like, okay, from a sustainability, using less plastics end, I'm cool with it.
I'm going to guess that they didn't have a choice.
Right.
That's my guess.
Yeah, my beef is more with it's a textural issue where it's like one of the things I don't like about drinking water out of bottles and why I've kind of pivoted to cans. Thank you, Jason, if you're listening. 17-star Jason.
Yes.
But pivoting towards cans is that being a big, powerful human like myself. But I feel like every time I go to take a sip of this, like if I don't treat this like it's made out of rice paper, it's going to just be a burst of water. 16.9 ounces of water.
I'd personally like to see that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, no. You can subscribe to my personal page.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's so good. I hate to sound like I'm complaining about the packaging or anything because I'm not, but you did make me think of something in like I wouldn't call it philosophical, but by any means. But like at the same time, you did plant this thought that like, wow, when if I buy a piece of cheese, for example, or a milk might even be a better vision because it's like you're not really just buying milk, you're buying a container, you're buying the ink and the pack, like the branding for it. There's like 3 to 4 items that you're technically buying every time you buy something.
Yes.
So I'm sort of curious why there hasn't been more pivoting in the way we package goods due to this. On a big scale. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like
no, you're absolutely right, and I'm sure there's all sorts of intuitive things that people have come up with.
Yeah.
I think the problem is the systems that put them into play for mass production.
Right, that makes sense.
So whether it's coming up with a new way to package something, it's one thing to get a patent for it because you obviously want to use that as your method of packaging, but then creating the machine to produce, and I think all that stuff just maybe to come. Maybe try to be an optimist. If anything good can come out of this pandemic, maybe it's some new innovative packaging.
Yeah, just send me bricks of cheese in a paper lunch bag.
Yeah, anything. I mean,
that'd be awful.
Yeah,
I would still buy it. Please don't.
These are the things that I think about all the time. There's an opportunity with this. Like, man, if you're in the packaging, how could you start spinning this a different way? Is there a different material that you could use?
Right.
And still use the same machines or whatever. So, yeah, we'll see.
I'll be curious to see how this all shakes out. And I mean, it'll probably be another few years, obviously. But like,
yeah, I think we're going to see some, like
we're going to put a calendar alert 20 today in 2025, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk like what happened with packaging.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, revisit
really
the packaging. I don't know. I'm not a forecaster. Like I just said, I'm trying to remain optimistic. It's just been a tough go with all of that. Luckily, we're doing real well here. That's the good news. It's just been a grind.
Sure.
And
I can see it on everyone's faces a little bit,
Yes.
where it's like it's that interesting thing where the world has kind of stopped, but then for a lot of us, the world didn't.
They never
ever
stopped
stop.
eating.
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. As much as I wanted to, I just couldn't do it. It's the one addiction I can't kick.
Well,
so.
You got to do it to survive, buddy. It's not an addiction if it's needed.
Someone was just like, imagine if the thing that you were addicted to, if you didn't do it, you would die. I'm like, oh, don't put that in my head.
You know what you are? You're addicted to living.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's happiness, baby.
That's happiness.
I'm living and breathing.
It's necessary.
That is true.
So,
you know.
Cut yourself some slack, buddy.
Yeah, I'll do my best. No promises. This is just me crying for help.
Well, you look good. It's always good seeing you.
Likewise, dude. No, this is great. I had a really good time today. Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I'm proud of you, man. You're doing great on the charts. If you haven't subscried, I will do this for you because
Go for it.
We would do work closely. I know how you do it. But please leave them a review. Yes, it's important.
Look at that.
It helps. But you know what? We are getting a lot of new followers, and it's been fun watching your success and tracking you. And it's been a very fun journey. I think, what are you in, about 17 episodes at this point?
Yeah. So as of today's recording, we'll be releasing episode 17 tomorrow. So today is what?
The 11th.
Just for the audience, the 11th. Yeah. So as of January 12th, that's episode 17.
It's been
and
coming
then this
along.
will probably air in the next week or two. So
yeah.
I always feel funny whenever we talk about the date on the show, not in a bad way.
And then they go, wait.
But they're like, wait, it's not the 11th. And you're like, yeah, I know. But it's like, I'm always,
Well, you can
I've
edit
been
that
trying
one.
to add it to my verbiage. I'm like, as of today's recording
There we go.
date.
Okay. As of today's.
Yeah. But which is fun, that's the hard part for me, like when we track the charts.
Yeah.
Because it fluctuates every 12 hours. So we could be number one at noon today, but at midnight tonight, we could.
It's like my milk prices that we talked about.
Yeah, literally.
They're all over the board.
Yeah, all the time. Because this podcast is a commodity.
Yeah. Well, I hope mine do all right and they don't get bored and shut me off.
No, they're going to be great. And I'll thank you publicly as well for all of your help on helping me like really make sense of these numbers.
My
It's been
pleasure.
awesome.
It's been fun.
Your excitement really excites me.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, seriously, it's been fun to work with you in that regard.
Yeah,
I'm having fun working with everybody, but you know, when you build that rapport,
you and I bounce off each other real well.
Right.
You know, we
have a good understanding.
Yeah, and we, similar interests, similar ideas, similar visions.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. I think you're going to do real good things. I'm happy for you. Happy to have you a part of the company, and you're going to do great, man.
Oh, thanks, Tris. I really appreciate that.
Hey, that's my pleasure, bud.
Chris, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time to come sing, the show's successes, our brand successes, and more importantly, being open with the audience about some of the difficulties of what we deal with regularly in this world. I know I had no idea. It's just one of those things, or not just one, but it's like multiple of those things that I lack the experience and the knowledge to know in advance. And yeah, some of it might be like, oh, that's a no-brainer. But of course, but I bet a lot of you are nodding your heads in agreement with me right now about that, right? So thanks again, bud. Appreciate you. All right, last, to close this baby off, let's sit down with the brewers and the marketing team over at 50 West Brewing as we can start teasing the next beer in the Road to the Jungle release coming up in February. Okay, everyone. So if you haven't listened already before, you're doing me a disservice, audience, but you should go back and listen to the first beer episode we did with 50 West. But I thought I would try to catch any potential new listeners up since we've got a bunch of new listeners in the last couple weeks. So obviously, since you all are here, talk to me. What's the Road to the Jungle? What are we working at here?
Road to the Jungle is our collaboration beer with Jungle Gyms and 50 West Brewing Company. And 50 West is the road that goes from the East Coast to the West Coast. So, and then Jungle is Jungle Gyms. And so, I mean, it made sense. Like, people were like, oh, you going to call it Jungle Brew? Like, lame, horrible name. Like, right. Don't like it. Like, so I was like, Road to the Jungle, In essence, all roads lead to the jungle, but there's that one road, 50, that goes from East Coast to West Coast. And I threw it out there, and it was funny because it was the first thing I threw out, and everybody was like, perfect. Works. Awesome. And so that means we're not categorizing ourselves to a certain style, that we can change the style for all the different beers we have, and just Road to the Jungle Volume 1, Road to the Jungle Volume 2, Road to the Volume Jungle 65. Hopefully we'll get to that high up. And, I'm excited. Like, I'm retiring on my last beer, like, all right, Road to the Jungle. And
the wheels are falling off.
Right? And no longer can I drive, but we're going to drink this beer one last time.
So on the design and the naming, and obviously you took a lead on that, on the naming, but on the design, is that a 50 West thing, or is that like a collaboration between 50 West and us?
It was a collab. We have a designer in house. His name's Alex. He's really good at what he does. But Alex worked internally with our team, and then got our idea of what the brand, what we wanted the brand to look like, to like a cohesive point, and then we looked at what Jungle had, and then we kind of combined both the ideas.
Perfect. I love that. And I think it's safe to say, I won't bury the lead too much, but we're looking at doing a stout this time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, Scott, this is probably a question for you. Time to shine, baby. So, in a short, what's the TLDR on this? What makes a beer stout?
So stout, I mean, it's the name that's just evolved, has evolved over the years. The exact definition of where it came from, I couldn't really tell you, but one way to think about beer is kind of the evolution of the color scale. So there are blonde ales, which are very, very light. Then there are amber ales, which are a little redder, and then there's a brown ale, which is brown, and then
crazy.
Yeah, I know. Well, it makes all sense. And then the next one after that's porter, because porter's a little browner than brown, right?
Right.
So exactly. But and then after porter is stout. So if you kind of think of beers along the color spectrum, that's kind of the evolution. And what that means flavor wise is, again, in simplistic terms, a golden ale or a blonde ale is all very, very lightly colored malts. It's going to be generally lighter in body and flavor, et cetera. As you get darker, you start getting more highly kilned malt. So the malt has basically been roasted, so it starts to turn darker. And brown ales have a little bit of a browner colored malt that's been added, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get all the way to a stout, and you're at the point where you're talking about very highly roasted malt. So it's black, and when that grain is used to make the beer, it's turning it a much darker color. The more you roast the grain, a few different things happen. The flavors kind of change. You go from a very light, toasty, bready kind of character to more of a kind of a caramel character, all the way to a very roasted, almost smoky chocolate, coffee, even characteristics. The more and more you kiln it. So the more of those grains that are used, obviously, then the flavor of the beer goes in that direction as well. So a stout's going to be darker. It's going to have more roast character, maybe even a little hints of chocolate, hints of coffee, things like that.
It sounds more delicious, and this I think you kind of maybe touched on this a bit, but it's something I know I've occasionally heard in a brewery or anywhere I'm drinking beer, or maybe what, Scott, maybe I've even said this once in my life. But some people are like, I don't like dark beers. Is there a certain why, or is there a certain characteristic that you think they might be responding to, or is this potentially a lack of knowledge that we could educate the customer on?
Well, it's always a lack of knowledge, I like to believe. But
I sort of the same.
Generally speaking, I'm just kidding.
Generally, with love.
So generally speaking, and this is from my experience, so I can only speak to what I've run into.
Thank you.
When people say they don't like dark beer, a lot of times what I think they're referring to is they don't really like a beer that has a lot more body and is more filling.
Kind of like heavy.
Yeah, heavier on the palate, heavier on the stomach, if you will. Because that's what a lot of times people say, oh, I don't like dark beer, it's too heavy, or whatever. And that is true of some darker beers for sure. Mm-hmm. It's not true of all darker beers. I could even make the same argument for light colored beers. Like I can make a light colored beer that is the thickest, heaviest thing you've ever drank in your life. There's not a lot of those that are out there, so you don't really run into it very often. Generally speaking, lighter colored beers are going to be lighter in flavor and body. But yeah, a lot of times people say they don't like dark beer. I think they're usually referring to the body, the mouthfeel, just the kind of heaviness of it.
I love that you answered like 8 of my other questions in that. Yeah, like it doesn't have to always be heavy. You don't have to. And really, that's what the show is for me, where I'm just like, not only are you educating me, you're educating everyone out there a little bit. Well, because, I think a lot of us don't know. I think you maybe saw something one time and you're like, that looks not what I would normally drink. I'm going to say no to that.
Well, I think also you get into like a lot of people that have tried dark beer have only tried dark beer that's bitter or kind of definitely full body, but they don't understand there's also Dunkelweizen, which is kind of like a heavy style just dark beer, but it more kind of drinks like an amber ale or, whereas porter, there's a lot of these rustic porters came about where you have these very bitter porters almost leaning towards more stout. They just don't have the body that a stout has.
Interesting.
So I think a lot of people, they try one or two dark beers and they just assume all dark beers taste that way and stop trying them. Where, if a Russian Imperial barrel aged, coffee stout is the first stout you ever try, you don't really think there's anything, and then maybe you try Guinness, you don't really think there's the stuff in between, and those kind of things. So
a really fun time in our history was like when we first opened up the doors in the brewery in 2012, and I was actually at the front. I was like one of the people that you would walk in. I would like greet you when you walked in the door, and I'd be like, "Hey, can I help you like figure out what beer you want to drink?" And there was a lot of people that didn't understand craft beer yet. It was like the time period in Cincinnati and I think at large in craft beer where people were like discovering and exploring new styles of beer. And so a lot of people came in the door and were just like, I like light. Like, what lights do you have? I drink, XYZ light beer. And we'd push them towards our Kolsch, and then we'd try to get them to drink our wheat, and then from there to drink the IPA and so on. But the people that would come in and not like dark was really funny to us because Bobby, who owns the brewery, would be behind the bar a lot of times, and he would look at somebody that said that, and he would say, "Well, do you like chocolate?" And they would be like, "Yeah, like who doesn't like chocolate?"
Right.
And then he'd be like, "Do you drink coffee in the morning?" And they'd be like, "Yeah." And then he would put a dark beer in their hand that tastes like chocolate and coffee, and they would drink it, and their mind would like be blown. But they didn't have a lot of reference points in craft beer yet, and so like I don't think they even knew that beer could even taste like that. And I think there's some of that residual like I don't like craft beer thing, or I don't like dark beer rather thing going on, and I think that people, it's an education thing, right? Where it's just like you just haven't tried enough beer, enough reference points to figure out, hey, there's all this dark beer that can taste like this variety of different like dark flavors that will probably resonate in some way with you, that on a flavor note that like you do like, whether it's chocolate or it's coffee or it's raisins or whatever it is. But there's so much flavor out there within the color of dark beer that there's something that you definitely like. Like when people say they don't like beer to me, sometimes I'm like, there's too many flavors of beer that like you can't say that unless you hate everything.
Right.
Exactly. Maybe you hate carbon, but there's still beer too. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be carbonated. So it's like you just don't like. I don't know. It's you just haven't tried enough.
And I'm gonna show my age a little bit. People that drank crystal clear Pepsi, who did the blind taste, were like, "No, this tastes like Pepsi," and then they look at it, they're like, "What the?" And then then people would get the 2 liter, pour it in a cup, and go, and their brain told them it was gonna be Sprite.
Right.
Told them it was not going to be cola. And they're like, wow, what the?
Right.
And I used to be a server who sold craft beer, and they give me the lightest thing. And at this particular place, the lightest thing was a Helles, which had just enough hop profile to throw people off. And then they had a darker beer, but was a Schwarzbier style, which was smooth and easy drinking, and they just couldn't wrap their brain around it. It's like, cool, close your eyes. Here, try this. Keep your eyes closed. Now try this. Oh, I didn't like that last one. That was the dark one. All right, open your eyes. What do you have in your hand? What the?
Right.
Don't be closed-minded by what your brain tells you it's going to taste like. And where Bobby asked people, do they like coffee? Do they like chocolate?
It's a great way to do it.
He led them into being able to appreciate the beer before just being like, here's a dark beer, here's a light beer. Which one do you like better? Because they're like, this is going to be all heavy and bold, and this one's going to be, Miller Lite, and not taste nothing like Miller Lite, and taste nothing like a big bold stout, a Russian Imperial barrel aged, and it was your mind playing tricks on you, telling you you're not going to like it because you have a preconceived notion before you give it a try.
Yeah. Let's have some fun. Mark, do you like Oreos?
I love Oreo. Look at me, Max. Come on now, don't. Maybe you've eaten a few cookies in my hour.
Try that beer in front of you.
Okay. I'm doing my sniff test that you taught me last time.
Think about like the cookie part of the Oreo.
Okay.
The outside of it.
I mean, even just from smell, I get that like kind of like slightly sweet, chocolatey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Tastes like an Oreo.
Yeah, dead on. It's like got that like you said, like the cookie part in particular. You get that like rich chocolatey like.
And it's got enough sweetness to at least represent the cream.
Yeah.
That beer is called Marble Palace. That's a beer we made, I don't know how many years ago. 4 years ago
maybe.
maybe?
It should say on
3
it.
years ago?
Really softened.
Yeah, it's like 3 years old.
It's that's a cool beer. It was cookies and cream stout, which that stout just came out of the barrel tasting like that, and then we
It has to be 18 or 19.
we added cocoa nibs in.
It's real hard to
It's
read.
tone on the side.
It's like secret code.
Love it.
2018.
2018.
That's cool. You know, it's something I think that maybe, and now that you guys have brought this up, it's kind of opening my eyes to it. It's something I think Jungle Jim's does a really good job of. But now that you're mentioning it, I really think. I think the craft brewing game really did open. It probably opened a lot of people's eyes because I think so many of us, I think about this show, right? And I'm hoping that this is inviting people to try something new, right? And by having you guys come on and talk about this and kind of like, you have to hold the audience's hand sometime a little bit. I think about like music I've loved where I was like, I don't like jazz. And now I'm like, I maybe only like it. You know what I mean? Like, but I just didn't, you don't have the language, so to speak, to really understand it. So I think it's cool that you guys are here to educate us on that stuff too. But what would you say makes a stout special, if anything?
In beer?
Yeah, just like in general.
Like amongst the other styles.
Yes, correct. Sorry, thank you.
I think that it's the only style that technically has roasted malt. Because like porter, you're not supposed to have like a roasted quality. It's supposed to be like a roasted barley rather.
Yeah.
So like that roasted barley quality, it gives you that like, if you're brewing beer without adjuncts, without like extra special ingredients, just with malt, yeast, water, hops, it's the only style that'll taste like coffee, ish, like with that like roasted quality.
Yeah.
Because porter will have. Like brewed without roasted barley, as porter's supposed to be brewed, it'll have like a more of like a charcoaly, ashy quality to it. It'll taste dark, but it won't have that like coffee-like note. Would you agree, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, some porters you start to get the beginning hints of that stuff,
but it won't
stout
like,
is
get
more.
in there.
Yeah, stout is more of it. So it's like I say, it's the evolution. It's all the same flavors. As you get darker and darker and darker, you start to get more and more of them, and they get more and more concentrated.
So I mean, really, a stout is just a bigger version of a porter. I mean, they're the same style in the basis sense. The whole stout just became. I mean, when you think of English people, they called bigger porters stouts because they were bigger. They were more stout.
There even used to be a style called stout porter.
Yeah.
Right,
And that's where it came from, and then porter fell off, and they just call it stout. That's where it all
it's
originated
ABV,
from.
but
So
it's also like BJCP defines it as like it's the first time you're supposed to use roasted barley.
I'm
You're
sorry,
not supposed to use,
BJCP, by the way.
beer judge
So-
certification.
Sweet, thank you.
So yeah, stout is where you can get into like also the unmalted stuff. Where
So like a
you
versatility?
get to those bigger bodied, but really unmalted stuff is just to produce unfermentable sugars that produce bigger bodies. So it's in a basis, it's just producing a bigger porter.
Cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, I like
It's
that.
a big porter. But it's the first time that you get like those stronger roasted qualities finally come off as coffee versus like in the
chocolate.
Yeah, and exactly versus bitter chocolate.
That's so cool. Yeah, see, I mean, I had no idea there was so much versatility within the flavor. You know what I mean? And I imagine people are listening right now going, oh, I also had no idea about that. So now, what do you guys say we try to figure out what we're going to make together? Ooh, that's enough of a teaser. I'm going to cut you off before it gets too deep. Stay tuned for the full 50 West interview and episode in February as we move to release our next beer in the Road to the Jungle series. Next week on the show is my big finale to our Lunar New Year coverage, so make sure you're following our social and YouTube pages as I'm doing a big hot pot episode. And we made it simple enough for you all to be able to do it at home too. It's going to be a ton of fun. There's going to be so much good food. I'm very excited about that. One of my favorite parts of the gig. Of course, thank you all so much for listening. If you haven't yet, visit vote.citybeat.com to give Jungle Gyms a vote in all the categories we're nominated for. If you're feeling nasty, because you got to fill out 20, you got to vote for 20 things. Feel free to look me up too, because I'm nominated for a bunch of stuff like local actor, filmmaker, comedian, podcast, all that fun stuff. Love to see some wins for the jungle and, of course, a little bit for myself. But I hope, most importantly, to see all of you at our Chili Bath live episode, a sentence I never thought I'd shout proudly, on Saturday, January 29th. And in the meantime, I'll see you out there in the bathtub of chili. The Jungle Gyms podcast is recorded in the WJJI studio inside Jungle Gyms International Market in Fairfield, Ohio. The Jungle Gyms podcast is produced and hosted by Mark Borison.